awesome year for 2025, and hoping that getting ready to make sure that 2026 is even better. This coming couple of weeks, we've got a few different things that we're trying to figure out still, particularly in terms of paid ads on a couple of different sources that we want to make sure we get approval for. There's some weird legal stuff that's come up for X that we need to get approval for. That is funny that X is the only website I've ever seen that needs that data. And we also are looking into a couple of campaigns targeted towards high quality users for potentially Galaxy. So for example, on Twitter, if any of the people listening are watching are verified on X, then they'll be able to partake in that potentially. So keep an eye out for that. But those are the key updates. I think we've got a couple of interesting thought pieces going out in the next week or so from the content side of things. Yeah, keep an eye out for those.
I'm just looking at, because Galena asked me about Paragraph yesterday, and I totally forgot about it. Did that get published? Do you need me to do it?
I haven't heard anything. Galena can confirm. She's in chat, but I can check that. I haven't tried.
She asked me to publish something.
No, it hasn't been published. Or she's.
All right, I'm going to the settings because I did. Let me try to take care of this right now while we're doing this. I thought I had given you guys editor access, so I don't know why. Galena
I can
editor.
also go check if I can do it.
It's not very helpful that you guys. Maybe I need to make you guys admins so you can publish. I don't know. Their site isn't great. Anyway, we've digressed. I'll work on this as we're going through planning our review. Cool. Sorry to interrupt. Is that anything else?
No, that's everything. I think Galene just mentioned that, yeah, apparently we do need admin privileges to post. It's a little strange, but
I feel like editor, why wouldn't editor be able to post? That seems insane that yeah. Okay. Anyway, good to know. Anything else from you, Alexi, or you want me to take over?
You can take it from here.
Okay, so engineering review. It looks like only Jakarta is here, and I've seen him before, so I'm sure he knows what this is. So I'm not going to go too deep into the whole rigmarole or what this is. I'll just turn it over to the engineers to start presenting the progress. Just maybe I'll quickly do a high level review, and then I can do an engineering contribution review as well. This is a shorter sprint. We had 2 short sprints because we put the holiday in the middle of it and gave everyone's been working a lot, weekends, everything. So I had told the team to try to take some time over Christmas and New Year's and recharge because we're going to have an intense month getting this to launch. So just high level, we're not quite to a code complete hash. We wanted to be at a code complete hash on the 5th, and we just missed the mark. I was able to get a rough hash, so almost everything in it, but not quite reviewed, over to the auditors because they wanted to run an AI scanner, our ChainSecurity auditor. And so they were able to do that, and they wanted to do that anyway before they started auditing because they wanted to determine where things were. And so we got some preliminary results from the auditors. And probably the biggest thing in there that we saw, actually, Yuhan had caught in our PR. It was in a PR that it was in a pull request of work that had been written but not merged. And Yuhan caught it, and the AI scanner caught it. So that was something that was kudos to Yuhan for catching that before we got it missed. And that was already fixed. And just the other things were we had some we had one place where parameters were flipped, and the only repercussion of it was a log would have been wrong. It would have had the wrong address when it got logged, which isn't a critical, we'll fix it, but it wasn't sort of anything major critically. And so the AI scanner result, I would say, produced some very little minor stuff that should be very quickly to iterate through. And we're hoping to get through all of the stuff that's in progress that needs to be merged. It's been written but not merged because of our internal review process. So we want to get all that merged and the fixes from this AI scanner by probably middle of next week would be my guesstimation. And yeah, so that's on the contract side. And then we would need that obviously audited, reviewed. We'll have Cantina go through and say, yes, you fixed everything. We'll have ChainSecurity go through and say, yes, you fixed everything and there's nothing new issues. And then the hope is that we would be in a position by the end of month to launch the protocol. That's the goal. With that in mind, we've also been working on vaults. I'll let Yuhan talk a little bit more about this, but I'll just say that I think that progress is going really well and we'll be in a position to have vaults ready for pre-deposits even sooner. And so, yeah, everything is coming together. I feel like we're just like so close to the finish line and then keep getting these like little annoyances of, oh, this is not quite right or that's not quite right. But these punch lists are getting like more smaller and more trivial every time. Yeah, and also I think the last thing is we are contracting with another security audit firm that it specializes in formal verification. The idea of formally verifying our entire protocol is unrealistic before launch. Just the time and resources because of the complexity is not really realistic. But they are doing a major enhancement of our fuzzing to have better coverage of fuzz testing. This is just in the layer of Swiss cheese analogy. Maybe if you're unfamiliar, one way to think about security is every piece of security that you do is another layer of Swiss cheese. And the goal is to get enough layers of Swiss cheese that the holes, there's not a hole through all of them. Right. And that's really just another layer of Swiss cheese. It's giving another team the opportunity to look through our code and try to enhance testing to find weird edge cases that maybe we missed. That is, oh, all this stuff works, except for in this really strange case where you have this going on and that going on and this going on. And that combination of things creates this weird issue that you weren't anticipating. That's where we're at. The goal is a hacker only needs to find one mistake and we need to find all the mistakes. So it's definitely a lot harder for us than the hacker. And we want to make sure that we've gone above and beyond to find all the mistakes, potential mistakes that could result in issues. Yeah. So I think to recap, optimistically, potentially having a vault that we could deploy and accept funds in the end of January, beginning of February, and then having our protocol launch a few weeks later is the goal right now. And I think that that's realistic. I'm optimistic that's realistic. With that, I will turn it over to the engineers for a more detailed, granular update of what they each contributed individually. Who wants to go first?
I can go, but then do you want to share some of the UI stuff? I don't want to steal your thunder with all of the integration side.
No worries. Sure, I guess we can start with you can show the UI and then you can explain how it goes behind the scenes. Let me share my screen. Yeah, so I guess able to see my screen. Hopefully, yes. So
Yep.
okay, so this sprint, like we were working on the vaults, like Will was mentioning. So me and Johan were working on this feature or like a thing, I guess, like a product where Johan was driving on the architecture of the vaults, creation of all of them, and like figuring out how do we deploy and create all vaults, all sorts of things, which he might explain eventually. And I was focusing on getting that on our dApp basically the UX side of things, the UI and the front end integration, and through using Ammalgam's app. So right now, like most of the stuff is functional right now, is working. We about say like 80% of things are like done. So I'll just like quickly do like a short demo thing where we go through the vaults and then try to do a deposit or something on that lines. So as you can see, like this is our vaults page, the new vaults page. We have a new vaults tab. Right now I'm on Sonic mainnet. So we have the Ammalgam Sonic USDC test vault, which is created by Yuhan. It has a very less TVL. It's just for testing purposes. It has 0.9 USDC. So we can show like the card will have a bunch of information like the name of the vault and like type of the token which the vault has, the APY 5.32%, and the TVL, right? And as we create more vaults, the more cards will come up over here. Let's just go inside the vault. So this is how the vault details look like. We have the vault section which talks about the APY and how much TVL again, as well as more details of what's the deposit token and the points which will be earning. So this points features is still like pending, or like we might implement soon. We might need to change the verbiage and make things like add information such as like coming soon or something on that lines. And then we have like about the vault section, which is like a dummy information which we'll fill up through like actual content. And then the vault strategy section where the funds is being deployed if we deposit in this vault. So this is being still like in the works. Right now it's like hard coded, but yeah, like we'll figure out a way to pull the data where the tokens has been allocated and all sorts of things. On the right hand side, we see like the deposit and the withdraw section. So we have this where users can deposit the tokens, USDC tokens, what they have. Right now, I have a wallet balance of $1.9, 1.9 USDC. We also show up like your deposits if we have like any deposits earlier in this vault. So let me just like quickly show you guys like a flow of this. It's fairly simple and it's not much complicated. As like the CDS says, just click on deposit. I approve the MetaMask thing pops up, or like whatever wallet we use. Once we approve, we do the deposit transaction. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So our vault currently is an asynchronous vault, which means like as soon as you deposit, it takes like a certain amount of time for amount to get deposited and deployed to gain yield. So we show the settlement time, like how much time it takes. Like right now it's estimated for 24 hours. So we'll figure out like which the actual amount like time is and like wire it over here. So as soon as we deposit, we kind of show in a pending state, which is shown over here, which says awaiting settlement. The 0.1 USDC is deposited in queue and will be processed soon. So once the deposit has been settled, we kind of show or add the amount over here as like your deposits. During that phase, the users can also kind of cancel their like deposit queue if they change the mind, which is also working and wired up right now. I just leave it as it is. So yeah, this is something like a basic flow for the deposit, which has been working right now. It's all in mainnet, Sonic mainnet, and it's all actual live vault, basically a test vault. So yeah, I'm still working on the withdraw flow. The withdraw flow is a little complicated. We need to combine like shares and claim and everything, all sorts of things, which eventually we'll get that done. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts, feedback, feel free to share. And yeah, with that, I'll just conclude. I'll pop on to you, Johan. You can take over and explain the behind the scenes.
Yeah, thanks. And sounds good. I'll try to do my best to keep it short just because there's a lot of stuff that went into this. But on a high level, like Nin said, we are operating our vault infrastructure from the Lagoon vault. So what Nin was just showing on our front end is here. Also on a Lagoon UI. You could find this vault just from the Lagoon side if you're on the Sonic chain. And the behind the scenes They are going to help us basically run our vault. I can manage our vault from here. And then initially during the pre-launch, before we launch our protocol, we will be holding the assets depending on the chain in other vaults to earn yield. And as you can see, this yield is calculated just from our vault operation so far. You are able to see all of the actions done here. We were just testing the flow and making sure we understand the different things, the roadblocks that we might potentially run into. And because due to all the operations and the time that the fund has been in the vault, we've been earning 5.18%. And this is real earnings from this silo vault here where we deposited the asset. Right now, I had just withdrawn the entire amount, which again is very little, 1 USDC out of this vault, but I will be depositing it back to continually run this vault and figure things out. But a little bit behind the scenes of how things work is that we have this manage page where I'm able to look at all of the different statistics from the vault and ensure that things are being run correctly. When Nin deposited the funds from the UI side as a vault operations, there are several different roles, and one of the roles is evaluation manager. And this role essentially allows me to provide a valuation for the vault. And that is something that I will calculate on my side and input it here. And eventually, once I do that, I can simulate and propose a new valuation. Once that is done, we will connect to the curator role, which in our case is a safe. This safe will, right now, it only has one signer, just me, since I'm testing it. But once the real vault is deployed, we'll create a safe with multiple signers, of course. And one of the signers or one of the address for this vault operation will be the curator, which is the safe. That is the person that will be able to deploy the assets in the vault and actually run the strategy. And so once I propose this new valuation, the curator will come and approve that valuation, and then the funds that are either deposited or if there's a redemption request, all of that will be settled and the funds will actually either go into the vault or come out of the vault. And for the safe, to make sure that we are operating in a kind of permission way, you're not able to just transfer the funds to another EOA or deploy it to some random place. We will be leveraging these Zodiac modules. Essentially, we can put this on top of our safe and permission the specific actions that the safe are able to make. We just had a meeting yesterday with the co-founder of Zodiac to do an onboarding session of how all of this operates. But we're able to, for example, record a deposit transaction on either Ammalgam or Silo, and then permission that action into the safe so that that's the only action that the curator, again, the safe, will be able to perform. And on top of all of that, we will be adding a Zodiac delay modifier, meaning any changes to these rules in the safe will be delayed, and that will all be public and verifiable. So that's the last piece that I'm currently working on, since their interface to implement all of this is actually in closed beta. We're actually on similar timeline with them in terms of launching all of this, but I was added to the closed beta to be able to test this flow for them. Yeah, so that kind of allows us to operate this vault in a very permission and public way. Anyway, a lot of documentation. I've come up with a lot of documentation of all of this. At some point, I'm going to combine them into a more succinct way so that there's an overview of how all of this is done from our side and make that public so people can read it and understand it. But yeah, like Nin said, we're close on finishing all of this. There's still some details we have to sort through, but we should be able to get all of the stuff done hopefully by the end of the month. From the front end side, all of the integrations pretty much, I don't know, 95% finished. Some details here will change by the end, but things are mainly working the way we're expecting them to, and we haven't run into any major issues. yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. Yeah, again, any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Okay, thanks, guys. I will popcorn to you, Eric.
Thanks, Yuan. So for the sprint to come back from the new year, I started a few things, but focusing on the one of the tickets that we've been cleaning up, making the changes for the making a price change to make average price. Before it was using the square root price range, but we're using the average price for the leverage liquidation. These changes caused some difficulties because when we calculate the leverage liquidation of the values, which is not a match from the other side of the contract. But this is because need a new test to track how fast the tick movement to trigger the bad debt. So once that done, another fuzz test caused another issue. So I spent a lot of time on trying to understand that issue and try to fix that. Eventually, I managed to tweak the take range that can bypass that logic. And I thought that's it because we use the average price and that makes the tracks working properly. But this is if we tune up from the take and max take range, that makes sense. It made sense at the beginning. So wrapped that up here, and then yesterday, and we look at it again, and seems that there's a little bit of work to do because not only making the tweak the take range on the test is not enough. Anyways, that's the logical change for the average price change for the leverage liquidation. It's making sense, but we just need to make it more understandable. And another thing, so I merged the proxy to the develop. So right now on the code base, we have our code in the upgradable and under auditing. There could be, and what else? Also help the issuer to figure out one interest issue, because when you borrow interest, which is when you borrow interest from the LP, if there's no deposit, single deposit, everything from the LP, you suppose that the interest all goes to the LP, but that's not the truth because we have introduced the lending fee. During the borrow, we minted the lending fee as a deposit, as a single deposit, which is happened before the interest. And then when you start to calculate the interest and try to assert the interest is the same interest that's earned by the LP, you can't match the number of the old interest because the lending fees minted at the borrow to the deposit and which has a single deposit that goes to the protocol. So that deposit actually earning the interest as well. So you have to subtract the portion of the deposit and to move it to the depositor from the total interest. That after investigate and that make that things clear. Yeah, that's pretty much for this sprint. And we'll be probably working through some issues found from the ChainSecurity and try to make everything wrapped it up to get the final code phrase ready. Yeah, that's me.
Does that leave me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this sort of happened mostly over the last 2 sprints, maybe 3, but like the final touches on it. And one thing I'll say is I did use, there's a lot of computations in this that were like really brain damage, and it like was creating a lot of time suck for me. And I actually was able to start using AI to do some of the math. Now, the thing about AI is that if you put in, it's just like logic in general, right? If you start at the wrong place and then you have AI do the math for you, it will give you the wrong math because you started the wrong place. So there's a lot of iteration with me being like, okay, I think this is where we want to start. But I actually found the AIs are actually, I was using Anthropic, right? Claude. It was doing a lot of this math very well. And I was able to, I still had to validate and confirm it was working, but I was able to get a lot of this. I was able to go a lot faster through this, which was taking a ton of time. And this took me a few weeks by using AI to do some of the computations and making sure that I was getting to the right place. And then taking what it did and then putting a final tweak on it to get these like calculations. And so a lot of these calculations are that are boxed or what like I was able to use to modify our partial liquidation strategy. And then I also verified it too. So actually, let me open this in Desmos because I think I'm quite happy with the results, right? That's the other thing is like with AIs, you always have to verify your results. Basically, what's going on here is I have ticks as the axis. And so imagine a reserve like a stable coin, USDC to USDT. The tick is going to be 0 because they're going to trade 1-to-1. So $1 USDC will be worth 1 USDT, right? And so with ticks, you just take your base to the power, and the power of 0 gives you 1. So at the beginning of this, the tick is 0. And then I wanted to show the loan to value of a leveraged position. So this is like taking, say, $1 million USDC and $1 million USDT and providing as liquidity, and then borrowing 99% of that USDC and USDT. This is similar to concentrated liquidity, but specifically around, but using leverage rather than the V3 mechanism to create concentrated liquidity. And then I want to show like where these things would get liquidated. And we have a saturation system that basically checks not only loan to value, but the impact that a liquidation would have on the reserves, and also verifying that it's Sybil resistant so that you can't say, hey, this position is too big to liquidate in the pool, so I'm going to divide it into 100 positions that can be liquidated and get by the checks. So saturation library does that. And what that results in is it tells us like how much liquidation is in each tranche. And so let's say the price goes down to the left, right? So as the ticks go down, the price is going down. And what we're showing here, I'm showing here is I use these to write some tests for validation of that our system was doing the same thing here. But basically this black line is the partial liquidation of the liquidity that's in closest to the price. And we bucket the saturation by tranches. So there's each tranche is 25 ticks. And I'm showing here in purple and blue this borderline this is at 25 ticks. So how much saturation is in the first tranche versus the later tranches. And basically how this system is working is if I want to, for some reason, this position should get liquidated, say between somewhere around, this is like -67 and this is -23. That's the ideal liquidation, is that where this position would need to get liquidated. Then we book saturation in between those points. But if for some reason it's not available like further away from the price and you have to use more saturation closer to the price, basically I can move like the saturation will basically could be more over here. And what's happening is this black line, if you can see, it's moving up. And what that means is that it's going to hit this loan to value threshold of 75% sooner. We've this 75% loan to value, and it will basically get liquidated sooner. And what's getting liquidated is just like part of the position, right? And so the factor of 1 basically means like it gets the ideal saturation. So here it's at a 66% loan to value at tick number -8, right? It doesn't get liquidated until the ticks go or start to get liquidated until it gets tick 14. But the more weight that I put in, the faster this will get to that liquidation point, right? Now it's actually would start getting liquidated at -9 or maybe 8 or 9. And yeah, so these partial liquidations are highly dependent on where the saturation of a liquidation will happen. And so I helped use AI to do a lot of this, some of the computational stuff and help me guide me, but then validated it in Desmos to make sure that all the math like worked and visually like these things made sense and these liquidation premiums. The schedule of tick to LTV made sense for a partial liquidation, and this black line, this red line is actually the partial liquidation of 2 tranches. And then this purple line is what would be remaining after this liquidation. So the second liquidation schedule would be on this lines of what part of the position that got liquidated that didn't get liquidated, right? And so a lot of the work was figuring out how to break apart these positions into pieces that made sense so that not only that each part was rational, because prior the reason I did all this work is our first approach was a bit naive and it had the liquidation schedule of this red line, which wasn't even always in the right place, basically. It can't see if it's showing it. It's not showing it right now. I don't know what I did, but there's these schedules were like they were just wrong, basically, the schedule of loan to value to tick. And so these make a lot more sense. Basically, when you have a leveraged position, your debt will be static, but the value of it will increase as the price changes. And so if you get too far left or right with a highly leveraged position, we need to have it start getting liquidated on both sides. Anyway, don't know how much that's translated, but very happy with the results. I was able to do table testing and fuzz testing with this case specifically that we saw like nonsensical results in our prior implementation. And yeah, so I don't have that branch up, but maybe I can show, this is probably overkill, showing the pull request for this, but some of the validation that happened in here I thought was quite good. So I think one of the tools that I've been using a lot recently is table testing, which is not quite fuzz testing, but it's a quick way to get your like units where you're unit testing, you're testing one set of parameters. Table testing, you're testing a group of parameters. And let's see, where is this test? That's not it. Here we go. So I put a lot of math in here for auditors to validate all the numbers that we did. But basically, this is like testing the loan to value schedules of these parameters so that I know that like at every tick, I'm going to get the expected loan to value, and the expected loan to value drives the premium for the liquidation. So these all came from this chart. And so I think the thing this AI craze that's happening, I think it's really important to understand how to use AI And I think one thing for us is that we have to do heavy verification that like whatever you put into AI, it will give you an answer no matter what. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right answer. It has to give you an answer because that's what it's designed to do. And verifying that answer is like the critical part. So I have to say, definitely impressed with the AI. It's getting so good. One thing is so important is if you put in bad inputs, you'll get bad outputs, right? So you got to know what you're telling it is right for it to give you the right outputs. Okay, so I'll pause there. Any questions for any of the engineering team, myself, or the marketing team? Feel free to fire them. Depending on how many questions we do or don't get, we'll start just wrapping up. And we've bored everyone to death. I guess they're all sleeping now. This is probably a great way to go to sleep, because you just listen to engineering review calls and numb
Yeah,
your
we'll have them
mind.
at nighttime, right
Yeah.
before.
It's nighttime for EU.
That's true.
Okay, cool. That is that then. And we'll stay posted. A lot of exciting stuff coming together and coming up. So thank you for those of you that visited and are continuing to stay engaged and joining these calls. And everyone have a great weekend. Happy New Year's, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Sounds
See you next
good.
time.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
See you guys.